And welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Spooky September continues as today I'll be sharing my review of Journal de Indochina for Call of Cthulhu from Sons of the Singularity. This is written by Francis Aquilone, Patrick Chandler, Jason Sheets, and Jesse Kovner, with artwork provided by Jennifer S. Lang, Thuan Nguyen, Ludovic Shaban, and Vincent Van Hoof. And I apologize, I guarantee I've mispronounced at least one of those names. This 228-page softcover is available now. Carries an MSRP of $40 if you want to order it through Indie Press Revolution, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $20. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Journal de Indochina from Sons of the Singularity. A few things I want to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, the fine folks over at Sons of the Singularity were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what's inside. Now, there are 4 adventures contained within this volume. If you are a player and your keeper has picked this up, maybe they haven't started running any of the adventures yet, or they're talking about picking this up, I do recommend tune out now because there are going to be some spoilers. I'm going to stay away from major spoilers, but there will be some spoilers. And of course, as we page through, you're going to see some things which might ruin some surprises of the adventures. So once again, as a player, I recommend tune out now. If your keeper is considering picking up Journal de Indochina, by all means, let them know about this video so that way they can approach this book and make a far more informed buying decision. So let's jump on in. First thing we're going to do is take a peek at the credits page because a lot of people worked very hard on this to bring this to light. Now, I will point out there is quite a lot of public domain images, photography, and so forth throughout this. Now, a lot of times when we see that in third-party products for any role-playing game, there's kind of a hodgepodge approach to it. That is not the case here. So there is artwork throughout, don't get me wrong, but the public domain images fit in very, very nicely in the book too. As far as production quality, paper stock, very well done. It looks as if this should hold up fairly well to repeated use at your game table. It is a soft cover, keep that in mind. But as far as the paper and everything, nice thickness to this. Everything's laid out very nicely. So kudos to Sons of the Singularity for the layout and presentation. Nicely done. So this contains 4 adventures, which all take place in Vietnam, or at least begin in Vietnam, anywhere from 1925 through 1955. One aspect of these adventures that I absolutely love is the fact that I learned so much about Vietnam during this period. Now, of course, I had some knowledge of the French domination of Vietnam as well as the siege of Dien Bien Phu, but I was really knocked out by how much I was able to learn from this book. And that's one of the aspects I talk about with Call of Cthulhu all the time. As a history buff, I think that's part of the reason I love the role-playing game so much, because there is just a ton of history that I learn from Call of Cthulhu adventures. There are 4 adventures contained within the first. It's going to start off. It is in 1925. It is the fertile red lands of Cochin China. And the player characters are going to be investigating a French rubber plantation. They've been hired by a rubber company to go and check out why they have lost contact with this rubber plantation. And This has a bit of a color out of space vibe, although there is no color involved in this adventure. There is a lot of very strange flora that's involved in this kind of mutated alien flora. And then, of course, it turns out that the local people have risen up against the plantation. And a lot of cool stuff going on in this. One aspect I should point out of the 4 adventures, this is not a campaign. So these adventures really do not tie together. So they can be utilized very easily as just one shots, especially with Halloween coming up. You want to play 2, 3, maybe 4 sessions of Call of Cthulhu and kind of do a standalone sort of tale. These are perfect for that. Now, each of the adventures will also feature pre generated characters, and they are quite unique and quite varied. We'll also get some lore sheets. They're presented normally as kind of sidebars, but we will have handouts as well at the end of the book that you can utilize. And something else that's really cool too is that each of the pre generated characters will get a bit of a write up to share with the player, and they will have some bonus skills as well. And they come from a variety of sources too. So it's not just Europeans as far as the pre generated characters. As you can see, as far as the handouts, we've got maps, we've got photography, we have journal entries all throughout. All 4 of these adventures are really, really nicely done and like them quite a lot. And they are unique, they are different. That's one of the reasons why I mentioned this is not a campaign, because each of the adventures has a completely different theme. There is no overarching sort of storyline going on here. But the second adventure is actually going to take place towards the end of World War II. So it's going to take place in 1944. And the player characters are actually members of the OSS and Viet Minh. And they are aiming to disrupt a secret Japanese operation, which is codenamed Moon God Ascending. So, of course, these investigators don't know that this is a mythos related ritual. They just think that they're trying to throw a wrench into the plans of the Japanese. So the player characters are going to find themselves traveling to this island where this ritual is going to take place. And yes, there are spoilers right there with the artwork. So keep that in mind. Next up, we have Expedition Lamont, the lost city of Yin Ho, which is really interesting because this is a jungle exploration adventure. Of course, it kind of works with some of the tropes of explorers trying to find a lost city, and the investigators are actually following the steps of this Roman Catholic priest who explored the jungles of Vietnam back in the late 19th century. So, really like this one a lot too. It's pretty unique. And of course, yeah, we've got things going on when the investigators find that lost city. So I do dig that too. Something else I found was very interesting about these adventures is that we do have some optional encounters, some optional set pieces. So if you wanted to try to extend the adventure into more sessions, you probably can. That's why I said, for the most part, depending on how long your game sessions are, 2 to 4 sessions if you're playing, say, 4 or 5 hours at a pop. So nice, meaty adventures in here. Then the last adventure is really unique. It's Operation Desperado. And this is a situation where the pre generated characters will all have kind of secret objectives, and some of them conflict with other characters. Now, this is something that we see with really each of the adventures. Each of the player characters do have some sort of objective, but they don't necessarily conflict. Here we will see that. And this is really interesting because this takes place during the siege of Dien Bien Phu. So the investigators are tasked with going through enemy lines and finding this Japanese bunker, this, Japanese bunker that's just been sitting there since the end of the war because this is taking place in 1955. And there are supposed to be pieces of this strange meteorites located in this bunker. And the investigators are part of a French foreign counterintelligence group who is assigned this mission. And it ends up that the investigators might find themselves teaming up with the Viet Minh to take on the mythos threat. And hopefully they will, because otherwise it's going to cause lots of problems. This, like I said, is a very interesting, very unique adventure. So, as far as the book goes, I should point out that whoever ended up doing the final kind of proofreading, I kind of have a feel that they're not native English speakers because there are some localization, I don't want to say issues, but little tidbits that kind of pop out that kind of stop for a second. You're like, wait a second. It's not real distracting, but it is there. So I should point that out. Something else to keep in mind is that many of the pre-generated characters are not Westerners. So that might be a little tricky for some of your players out there. Now, granted, Call of Cthulhu usually appeals to a kind of more mature gamer, I guess I'll say. So I'm not saying that the players are going to kind of bog down in some really offensive stereotypes or anything like that. All I am saying is that it might be a little more challenging for some of the players to take on the roles of non-Westerners. But thankfully, we do get a lot of good background information for the pre-generated characters. So as you can see, we've got a bunch of handouts. We've got some other resources available to us. Our Kickstarter backers, big thank you to them to finish up the book. And that is a peek inside Journal de Indochina from Sons of the Singularity for Call of Cthulhu. So let's swing on over to the other camera. I'm going to give this some final thoughts and provide my review score. There is tons to love about Journal de Indochina for Call of Cthulhu from Sons of the Singularity. The 4 adventures all stand out. They are all very unique. They do not tie together. So there is no campaign there. So if you're looking for a campaign, this might not fit your needs. But as far as the adventures go, all top notch, all really well done. I love the fact that we've got some optional encounters and set pieces that can be added into the adventures if you're looking to extend the number of sessions that the adventure will play out in. And they're not filler either. That's very important to keep in mind. Love the adventures. Minor issues with localization, but it's not that big an issue. Like I said, it's kind of noticeable, but really doesn't affect the game itself. Now, keep in mind, all of these adventures are standalone, and they do take place outside of the first in eras that are not usually associated with Call of Cthulhu. So you're not looking at modern, and you're not looking at the traditional 1920s and 1930s for Call of Cthulhu outside of that first adventure. As I mentioned, you do have a lot of non-Western pre-generated characters. That might be a challenge for some players. Probably not a huge challenge, but I do want to mention that as well. But all in all, I am super impressed with Journal de Indochina Volume 1. Yes, there is a second volume. I do not have the physical book, so you will not see the review of that. But I do understand that it is 4 adventures. I think they all also take place in Vietnam, and they all involve the French Foreign Legion. Very interesting. Very nice. So, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Journal to Indochina Volume 1 for Call of Cthulhu from Sons of the Singularity a 9 out of 10. It is that good. If you are out there looking to run some standalone Call of Cthulhu adventures that are going to be completely unique, taking place in an area that we never see Call of Cthulhu adventures for, this belongs in your collection. There is no doubt about that. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central, as I share the latest in tabletop gaming news and pontificate about topics related to our hobby. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Spooky September will continue. And as always, I certainly hope every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.